Hey everyone, I'm Iris. I'm the editor of E27. Just welcome to Echelon. So we're just going to kick off today by discussing a topic that's actually very near and dear to my heart, the evolution of employment. So employment and the concept of work has actually been evolving a lot in the past decade. So outsourcing, digital nomads, as well as online freelancing actually makes up a large segment of the current workplace. So I'm here to talk to Matt Berry today. He's the CEO of Freelancer.com. They're an outsourcing marketplace. So I just want to have him kind of weigh in on the trends, where it's kind of going, and how it can empower Southeast Asia as a region. So Matt, do you want to start off by just talking a bit about Freelancer.com and what your team is currently working on?
Sure. Well, at Freelancer.com, we're the world's largest online crowdsourcing and freelancing marketplace. We connect up 16 million people from all around the world to get any sort of job you can think of done. So we connect two types of participants in our marketplace. Our employers are primarily startups, consumers, small business, who want to turn that sort of spark of an idea into reality, which is maybe I want to build a website for my company, or develop a mobile phone app, or get a product manufactured, or whatever it may be. We're the workforce, which is highly globalized all around the world, where we bring technical jobs to people that work no matter where you are, any time of day. So you can be a freelancer, you can set your own pay rates, work wherever you want to work, in whatever field you want to work.
Okay, cool. And can you talk a little bit about what your team is currently working on in the past year? Are there any new features to the site, or?
Well, there's a huge number of things. My team as a whole is a very globalized team. We have 420 people all over the world, and we're pretty innovative on the product. There's all these different ways you can get work done. You can outsource jobs. You can crowdsource, put up prizes, and people compete for prizes. We just launched video chat last week. There's a whole range of different things you can do on the site. And really, the great thing about this business is we really connect up entrepreneurs on both sides of the world. So entrepreneurs being small business owners or startups that want to get things done, with entrepreneurs that are in the developing world that want to go create a business working. And so we really provide the platform for international micro trade. So if you're a freelancer, you get up in the morning, we do your messaging for you, we provide your clients, we do the payments, we are your shop front on the internet, and we also act as a trusted third party for your reputation online.
Hey, cool. I know you mentioned earlier we were talking, you also have a very big presence in Asia. You have about 30 people in Manila as well.
300.
300, sorry, I think it was a 300. Hey, cool. So let's talk about, let's move on to a little bit more about Freelancer.com's history. So you took the company public in 2013. So just curious, why did you choose the ASX, and what has it been like being a public company?
So, it was pretty exciting. For those of you that don't know about the Australian Securities Exchange, it's actually a very, very large public market globally. It's actually the fourth biggest equity capital markets, and it's on par with NASDAQ in terms of the amount of equity that gets raised per year. It's just traditionally, most of the equity that's been raised has been for resources and mining. So technology was something very new. So back in 2013, we'd bootstrapped the company pretty much for about 6 years, and I think a lot of the startups here are probably doing the same thing, bootstrapping, as opposed to going out and raising money from a seed investor or a venture capitalist. That's actually the best place to raise money, because you're raising money from a customer for actually selling them something useful. But after the downside about bootstrapping is that over a number of years, you don't really have like these valuation stakes in the ground in terms of how big you are. Like if you're a traditional Silicon Valley company, you'll go out there and you'll raise maybe some angel financing at maybe a couple $1 million valuation. Then you'll raise some venture capital at maybe a $10 or $20 million valuation. Then over time, you'll have these sort of valuation points in the ground where showing the growth of the company. So people, at all times, you can go to Crunchbase or whatever and look up, how big is the company, where's it at, and so forth. When you're bootstrapping, no one really knows. You're working way behind the scenes. The great thing is that you retain ownership of the whole business, because you're not diluting by selling equity. But after a while, you do get a little bit frustrated. So kind of around 2013, when Instagram sold for about 1.13 billion, 551 days old, 13 staff, no revenue. A few of us were a little bit frustrated, thinking maybe we should raise a little bit of money just to kind of put that valuation stake in the ground, so people actually know the size we're at. So we thought about raising a bit of venture capital. And of course, the US venture capitalists are very, very active now in the Australian market. I presume the same is said of Southeast Asia. Every quarter, the top VCs will call up with their associates and just ask how you're tracking. So once you do a few million in revenue, you'll be on the radar, and every quarter you'll get that phone call from Sequoia and Excel and Insight and Benchmark and so on. And at some point we thought, okay, maybe what we'll do is these term sheets that keep coming in, maybe what we'll do is we'll think about taking a little bit of money from one of these groups, just a little bit, minimum dilution, just sell a small amount of the company just to kind of put that valuation stake in the ground. And kind of what was happening at the same time was, the Australian venture capital industry is basically dead and will never be resurrected. And the reason why is in the first dot-com boom that came out, the Australian venture capitalists never really showed a return. And as a result, they never really got to their Series B, right, of second fund or third fund. This is why a lot of Australian companies do bootstrap, is because it's just so hard to get funding to get off the ground. So you're forced to go out there and kind of find a good product or service that you can sell to someone. That's why the Australian companies that kind of made it through have taken a little bit longer, but the CEOs like Mike Cannon-Brookes, Atlassian, and Scott Farquhar and so forth, they're very, very good operators of businesses. So got to that sort of point, and I write a lot about technology policy in the country, and someone said to me, well, you write a lot about the Australian Securities Exchange, how you think that's the future of financing of technology companies in the country. Why don't you kind of put your money where your mouth is and list on the ASX rather than raise any venture capital? So I had a bit of think about it, and I looked at it, and really, I mean, the stock market basically is crowdfunding, right? It's crowdfunding in its purest sense. You go to the market, you write a prospectus, you go raise some funds. So we thought about it, and we thought, okay, well, let's do it. So we went down the path, and for those of you who haven't IPO'd a company before, and I probably imagine not many people in the room have done it, I found the process actually significantly easier for the Australian Securities Exchange than actually going and raising venture capital. For those of you who kind of gone out and done the hard paths of going and raising money, I mean, you've got to like walk up down Sand Hill Road or wherever it is, banging on doors, pitching to VCs all day, and then ultimately it takes a huge amount of time, maybe 6 months, 9 months, maybe more, and you end up having to negotiate a very, very thick telephone directory of preferred stock terms and conditions, in a preferred financing. So, but the difference with going public is all you do is you write a prospectus, and what a prospectus is, it's like a mini business plan, and it just says, this is the amount of money I'm raising, this is what I'm raising the money for. And the other great thing about listing your company and writing a prospectus is you get to set your own valuation, right? So you say, here's the valuation. If people are not interested, they won't buy any stock at the IPO, and you won't be able to get it away. So the process was actually very, very straightforward. It only took about 8 weeks to write the prospectus. You have to go through then a due diligence committee where you have 8 meetings of the due diligence committee where you have to check every single line in that prospectus to make sure that it's accurate and there's no misrepresentation, and that's very, very important. Otherwise you're liable, and the directors are liable for anything that may be misquoted. But the costs were fairly low. We had a fully underwritten IPO of only about $15 million raised, and that underwriting cost was about 450,000 Australian dollars. The legal fees were about $90,000, and the investigating accountant's report, which is the accountant that signs off on that, was about $50,000. So it was fairly, and you can pay for that out of the funds you raise, right? So we went down the path, and the minute we started going down the IPO path, all these amazing things happened. You may have read out in the press, we had a takeover offer from a company out of Japan for about $400 million and so forth, and a huge amount of publicity for the business. It was great for driving revenue and so forth, and it was a phenomenal opening. In fact, it was the stock actually opened up 520% in the first hour, so it went crazy. But it was a phenomenal process, and just one takeaway from this is, since that point in time, there's been a sort of a change in the mindset in Australian technology companies where they've actually thought themselves, why would I go on the route of raising venture capital when I can, if I've got a little bit of revenue, maybe I can go and just list it, right? We don't have Sarbanes-Oxley in Australia. It's a phenomenal market. It's very, very straightforward. The compliance obligations are very low compared to the US. And in fact, there's a huge number of public markets investors who traditionally, the investment banks who would play in the realm of companies in the hundreds of millions of market cap or billions of market cap, who are now very, very active back in technology. So it's kind of like back in 1999, 2000, with kind of a lot of people who are playing more in the public markets now are interested in tech. So I think it's a phenomenal time. And since we went public, something like 243 companies have either IPO'd or raised money through secondary or backdoor listings on the ASX. So it's a phenomenal exchange, and the ASX is actually positioning itself now to be the hub for technology listings in Asia.
Okay, yeah, you were definitely saying that a lot of companies are choosing to list in the ASX now, and in Australia it's a strategy for a lot of Australian startups to actually go IPO as opposed to get acquired. So maybe if anybody has any questions, they can come to you afterwards for some tips. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the trends of online freelancing. So obviously the evolution of work has been changing a lot in the past decade. So when you first started Freelancer.com in 2009, online freelancing was just starting to get its legs, but now it seems to be fairly commonplace. So I think being a digital nomad is one of the trendiest lifestyle choices in the past year. So what are your thoughts on lifestyle design, and where do you think it's going in the next 5 years?
Well, if you kind of backtrack and you kind of see where it's come from, you can kind of get an idea for the future. I mean, back in the 1920s, when maybe your grandfather went out and thought he would embark upon a career, that career was for life, right? Fast forward to the 1940s, 1950s, maybe 20 years, you enter a job, everyone thinks that you're supposed to be there for 20, 25 years. I'm Gen X. I think 5 or 10 years is probably reasonable for a career. Gen Y, I manage 420 of them. I think maybe 6 months to a year is probably a reasonable career. But then you look at the freelancers, and their career is 2 weeks. So the average job on Freelancer.com is around 2 weeks. So the great thing about this is you get to design and architect your own career, right? So you can wake up one day and go, okay, I've been working on website design for a little bit now. Adobe's released this new design package. I want to focus a little bit more on my design skills for maybe a few days or a few weeks. And then after that, you can go, well, you know what? There's a new version of iOS coming out. I'd really like to learn how to write an app. I'll work on that for a few weeks. And the great thing about working on Freelancer is, we have probably about 6,000 or so jobs per day being posted. And really, if you've got that sort of specialist area you want to learn about, or it's an area that you want to change careers into, you can really put your toes in the water and just try with a small little project and see if you like it, and then build your skills up and so on. So I really think that the careers of the future are going to be a lot more fluid. You really are going to be architecting your own career, and it's really going to be about creating a job rather than taking a job, right? And whether it's as a freelancer kind of working in a marketplace or working for a company and kind of going from job to job, or as an entrepreneur turning the whole model around on its head and hiring these freelancers to go and build a business for you. I mean, it's just phenomenal. People are starting businesses now on the back of a credit card and building them into several $100 million businesses.
Great, great. Yeah, nowadays it really seems like, well, back in the day you're saying the Gen X, the older generation would approach work kind of as a marriage, but then nowadays millennials are approaching as more serial dating. So it's kind of nice to be able to redesign your life in that way and just, I think, pursue a career that's outside of what you studied in school. So I really wanted to pivot this conversation and talk a little bit about how online freelancing platforms can kind of impact the developing world. So I think the International Labor Organization released a report recently on youth unemployment and how I think young people between the ages of 15 and 24 are 3 times as likely to be unemployed. And I think in the developing nations, this can really be a catalyst to social unrest. So can you talk about how technology can maybe help reverse this trend?
Well, I think particularly crowdsourcing is it's phenomenal impact on Asia in particular. I mean, Asia dominates our marketplace. So we have more users, for example, in continental Asia, for example, India, than any other country. Philippines is huge, Pakistan, Bangladesh, right throughout Asia. It's phenomenal. And I think the great thing about it is, these platforms are designed so that, if you are young and you have no money, you can jump on and you can just start winning jobs for free and working. And it's designed so that you only pay as you start making money, right? So literally, if you've got any skill set at all, right, you can just jump in and kind of work in that area. If you don't really have many skills, we've got some basic categories you can get going in, whether it be data entry or internet research or what have you. And as you build up your skills, you build up what's known as reputation. Now, the really good thing about reputation is it's like this metric we have. The more jobs you do, the more you get paid, and the more highly you get rated, the more you gain reputation in certain niche areas. As you gain that reputation, you'll start appearing higher and higher in the lists. And when you bid on a job or you appear in a directory and so forth. And once you get about 20 or 30 feedbacks, you can actually win more jobs than you can actually do yourself. And at that point, it's a really pivotal moment in the career of a freelancer where you go, do I want to hire a second person, or do I want to stay being a solopreneur working in a particular area? And so, I've seen phenomenal impact of our platform in some countries where people have started with 2 people in a room in India and now make $1 million a year with 100 people working for them, right? Or stay-at-home mother in the Philippines who thought her career was over because she wanted to look after the kids and actually works online and actually makes more money working online now freelancing than she did in a full-time job because the pay rates are phenomenal in certain niches.
Right, so it's just really great, I think, the opportunity here with online freelancing because a lot of people just need about $10 a day to live, but now they can make $10 an hour on platforms such as Freelancer.com.
Or more. I mean, it really
or
depends.
Even, or more, like you said.
I mean, the main thing to remember is that the days of being average are over. So you really have to not just to architect your career, but you have to architect your education as well. And the really amazing thing is there's platforms like Udacity and Coursera and Khan Academy and so forth now, where really any topic you want to learn, you can learn for free, pretty much, right? So, the main thing is to you think about what skills you want to develop, and make sure you're kind of constantly reinventing yourself and constantly embarking on a career of education, not just architecting your career, but architecting your education.
Wonderful. I'm just going to skip ahead. Actually, I want to really talk about the work that Freelancer.com is doing in Southeast Asia. So I know you guys have some contracts with the Malaysian government, for example, just I think running workshops and teaching people how to work websites. Can you talk a little bit about that?
That's right. So we work with MDEC, with the Malaysian government. In fact, they launched this week with the Malaysian Prime Minister. They have a thing called e-Rezeki, which is they believe that 40% of the workforce in Malaysia can be powered in terms of income through working online. And the great thing about what we do is it's not just for mainstream workers. We also help people who, for whatever reason, can't work full time or are in regional areas where there's no jobs locally. They're very few and far between in technical areas. But if you're the elderly and you're maybe on work, you're retired, but you have some good skill sets, but you want to still contribute, maybe only work 1 or 2 days a week or a few hours a week, you can do that. Or if you're young and maybe you're studying and you want to work on the side, you can do that. Or even if you're disabled or disadvantaged in some way, all you need is access to a computer and you can access a world of jobs. So we have an agreement with them where they're going around to regional communities and promoting the use of our site, and we provide the jobs to the platform, which I think is amazing. In Indonesia, we support the Indonesian Freelancing Association, and they do a whole bunch of different events around training people up and teaching them how to use various software packages or work in certain careers or architect their careers and so forth. So we work right across the region. In fact, the majority of the users on Freelancer are actually in Asia.
Okay. Is there a specific Asian market that you're focused on, or is it evenly distributed?
It's not evenly distributed, but we're huge in a number of countries. We're very, very big in India, very, very big in Pakistan, Bangladesh. The Philippines is phenomenal. The Philippines has just overtaken India for BPO, and so that country is absolutely flying. Indonesia's going crazy. Literally in the last 2 years or so, it's gone completely mental. And I think that's because there must have been a rollout of high-speed networking, like broadband to the home in certain regions, but that's gone really, really well. Obviously, a good representation in Singapore. Really right across the region.
Okay, great. We're actually almost out of time, but I really wanted to just end things off by talking what's next for Freelancer.com. So what can we expect from you guys in the next year or two? What's in the pipeline?
Well, we want to be the world's largest marketplace for, we have global marketplaces for products of the size and scale of an Alibaba, an Amazon, and an eBay. And I think this is absolutely going to happen in the services industry. We're the world leader by number of users. We're the world leader by number of projects. We want to be the international platform for microtrade. Any job you can possibly think of, you can go to Freelancer and get it done, either as to employ someone or to work. So really, we're shipping features all the time. We're in 34 languages now. We're in about 19 currencies. There's a whole bunch of amazing things happening. We're pretty excited, and the really good thing is just the community we have. It's amazing because it's just so entrepreneurial. That everyone is there building their business, building their startup, or building their service organization. So it's a pretty amazing company to run.
Great. I think in just the next 5 years, it'll be really interesting to see where this space is going. Great. All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing, Matt. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.